Hi, hello everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to Tina Chat.
With Harry and
Zara.
Pat and Danny today.
And Danny, yeah, we got a guest. Hi, Danny.
Hello, this is exciting.
This is
It
exciting.
Danny is on Zoom at the minute, and Harry and I are not the most tech savvy people, so if he sounds like he's inside a can of soup, it's because that he basically is.
Yeah, I'm sure, to be fair, people, if you listened before, it's not... We literally just set up a microphone that we barely understand, record it, and then that's it. It's very raw, stuff. But yeah.
Okay, very important to get started. Harry and I, second week in a row, have 2 cups of tea.
Yes, we
Tina
do.
Chat. Danny, do you have a drink? Are you letting the side down?
I do. I don't have tea, but because I'm not really a tea drinker, it makes me sleepy. And we've had a heavy night, so I needed sugar. So I have a diet Coke.
That's
Nice.
fine. We'll accept
we
it.
love that. Perfect. Okay, one other what's the word? Announcement is we've just seen our neighbour getting ready with the lawnmower, so we will do what we can.
We might have to
sound
pause.
wise. It's stopped raining, so we'll see.
We'll get started, and then if he gets going, we'll pause, and then we'll go from there. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Anyway, today is exciting. So Danny is here he's speaking to us today from London, and Danny is currently an agent in London, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself in a minute. But yeah, today's episode is all about agencies, how to apply for them, what it's like having an agent, do you need an agent, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess it's an insight from the perspective of Danny as well, to see, what his viewpoints, his ideas. Because I think sometimes agents can be sort of viewed in a certain way, depending on your bubble and how people talk about agencies and stuff. So hopefully Danny will quash any bad ideas, which I'm sure you will.
I'm sure.
So,
Okay, the lawnmower has started. If it gets any worse, we'll pause and come back, okay?
yeah, any sudden stops.
I know.
It'll be fun. We'll be tossing a coin over who's editing this podcast. Okay, so Danny, tell us a bit about you. Tell us a bit about your journey, who you are.
Yes, so I live in London, like Zara said. I am well into my 30s now, so we are of the older bracket. I was a performer myself for about 8 to 10 years, mainly like holiday parks, character work, working abroad, production shows. And then I just decided a few years ago that it was time for me to step away from it, but I wanted to stay in the business in some form. So I flitted for a few years, like casting, running events, and then at the start of this year I fell into becoming an agent. So now I work for an agency, and I look after a book of actors. So my background is performance, but now we are well in the other side of the field.
I like that. I think that's good. I think as coming in that direction, you're going to have a good understanding of both sides now, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, understanding the perspective of your clients and stuff is an important thing, which obviously most agents will have a good understanding of. But I think it's nice to know, I find there's a bit of reassurance when you've got an agent who's
Also worked.
Yeah, it's like, you understand, which, I think is good. I think it's a good thing.
I feel like you have to, because I feel like, there is probably agents out there that have never worked in the field or don't understand the field, but I think it'd be really hard to navigate if you didn't understand auditions, self-tapes, I think it'd be a lot harder.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think it makes a difference in the way of, negotiating with casting directors? I don't know if you do much of that in that way, but if there was say, a really last-minute self-tape or something, a little bit of a situation where you're like, I don't know, this is a bit... Does it help in a way of negotiation? Do you know what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah, I think it does, because I think you understand like being the other side of the coin, you understand how last minute the industry can be. So you have the understanding to be quick on your feet, and you can get self-tapes turned around within 4 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah.
You can get people to auditions in a short space of time, whereas I think some people that are not in our industry think that turnaround is crazy and not acceptable, whereas because we're so used to that being a thing, you can make things happen in a short space of time. Well, you have to.
Yeah.
Of course.
You have to think on your feet.
So and with the agency you work with right now, what does your day look like? Like, how does it work? What do you do? What's your day-to-day life as an agent?
So day to day is it depends on the stage I'm at with people. So my day could be looking over people's spotlight, looking over people's social media and seeing what needs adding, what might need improving. Do they need new headshots?
Yeah.
Is their show reel or dance reel or whatever reel up to scratch in terms of how they are now? So we work from the ground up. I think some people just assume that we just submit people all day, 5 days a week, but we look at people's spotlight, we look at how they can be going to workshops themselves, and then so I'll do that some days, and then most days I'll be looking on Spotlight, looking on other websites, reaching out to casting directors, to flag clients, to submit them, and yeah, that is my week. But yeah, we don't just sit on Spotlight all week. Like, we will reach out to casting directors personally and say, I've got this person, I think they'll be great for this that I've seen you're doing. So yeah, it's a mix between submitting people and also improving people in their craft, really.
That's a lot, isn't it? A lot of management stuff that I think people don't necessarily think about it, do they? I think you definitely. I mean, I'm sure all three of us have been in conversations with other performers where people are like, "Oh, my agent's not doing anything for me." But a lot of the stuff you're talking about is so behind the scenes. You're not going to call up a client and say, "Oh, by the way, I'm doing this," because you haven't got the time to do that.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's a big thing with this industry, which you probably noticed too. Like, that you don't really know unless you ask. You don't really know what your agent is doing. So I think that is why a lot of the time people do say, "Oh, they're doing nothing for me," because you don't send over a spreadsheet every week of everything you've done for them. So I think that's sometimes where the communication can get lost.
Yeah, and I suppose if you have a big book of clients as well, and you'd waste so much time doing that if you were to do that. I think another thing though, like day-to-day life, people, if you send an email to someone, regardless of whether you're in whatever industry you're in, I feel like sometimes you can get consumed with the fact, "Oh, why haven't they got back?" But we also, I feel, forget everyone's got their own things going on in life.
Yeah,
like they're all they might be at home with their family, they might be on holiday. Do you know what I mean? So many other things happening, but because of that one faction we've done, that's the only connection we have with that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as an agent, talk to us a little bit about the industry from your side of things. Like, I don't know, anything you feel relevant, but I guess as a performer we see it as one way, we see it as there's so much that goes into this, I guess.
We've got written down here what, like, the do's and don'ts, because I think you definitely get told, "Oh, do this, do that," or whatever, but I'm guessing it'd be different for each person. But as a general rule, do you have like things that appeal, things that are like someone might say or send to you and you're like, "Well, this has put me off straight away"? Anything kind of like that?
In terms of when people want to be represented?
And
let's start there.
Yeah, and then if there's anything else.
Yeah, so I feel like my advice to people would be, if you're seeking representation and you're sending out emails, or you're like reaching out on Instagram or whatever channel you're doing it on, is always personalise the emails. For myself, if it's literally, I know it's a generic email that you're copy and pasting to 20 agencies, which I know people do. I've done it. You have to hustle, we have to graft. But I just think even if you can add in a sentence or two that personalise it, that shows that you've looked over their website, or you could say, for example, "I saw you won an award for this," or "you had someone in this." It just shows that you've done your research and you're not just reaching out to every single agency you can. So I think that would be advice number one, is tailor what you're emailing. To me it just makes me skim over it, because I'm like, "Oh, this is a generic."
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that is a big one. And I would also say, in terms of representation, if that's where we're starting, find agencies that you feel could represent you. Like, I think some people just want to be represented, but you need to find an agency that they get people work in the area I want to go into, or it looks like the kind of agency I'd get on with. So I think, tailor the agency that you want. Don't just try and get represented by anyone out there, because it needs to be a correct fit, is what I would say.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Because it's a two-way relationship, isn't it? You know, it's
100%.
Yeah, because you're working collectively to the same goal, so that both people can, at the end of the day, make a bit of money. So.
Yeah.
You put your trust in someone, so you need to trust them. So I always say to everyone that regardless of what jobs you've seen them get people, or all the glitz and the glamour, you need to bond with your agent or agency, because that to me is like rule number one. If you don't bond with them, or you don't feel like you've got a relationship, then it's never gonna work or go anywhere. Because you hear so many stories, don't you? People like, I can't message my agent, I can't speak to them.
Yeah.
And that's like, then you've lost already.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, because you definitely want to be able to talk about stuff that's important. I mean, one of the things we talked about in a podcast that we recorded the other day was about taking a break, and one of the things that pops to my mind, at least, if you can't tell your agent or whatever, I've booked a holiday for this date, you could end up in a really difficult situation.
Because there's definitely agents out there who, like, whatever you use, Tagman or whatever, that you say, I'm going to be away from this date, from this date to this date, who just completely ignore that, and I'll still send you a casting, I'll still expect you to do it, and you'll be like, I'm in bloody Barbados, what do you want me to do, you know?
God, you must be getting some good work.
You have that open, honest relationship.
Yeah, 100%. Was there anything, like, in a different aspect, like, what about in a meeting, like a face-to-face meeting? Is there anything that, like, I don't know why the phrase turn on and turn off keeps coming to my head. I don't know if you're dating at the same time, but you know what I mean.
Listen, where do you want to take this? What kind of meeting are we talking No, I think in a meeting sense, I always say to people, like, I love when people come prepared with questions. Like, I know some people feel like I can't ask questions because I'm trying to get repped, but like, I know that shows that someone knows their stuff, and that they know what they're doing. I'm not saying come with 1,000 questions, but even if they've got one or two, like, I'm like, oh wow, they really they want to make sure it's right for them. Because I think sometimes people think that they're trying to impress the agency, but it also works the other way around.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say in a meeting sense, questions are great. You can never ask too many questions. And also, I think in a meeting sense, I would avoid. I know it's the one thing that people always want to ask, but people always say, what's the biggest thing that you've got somebody in? And I always say to them, there isn't, because my biggest role might not be what you think is big. Like, to you, it could be a West End role, but to someone else, it could be a Netflix series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really a question that can't really be answered. So yeah, I would say in the meeting sense, come prepared with questions, and kind of not know your stuff about the agency, but know your stuff about you as a brand.
Yeah.
That's what I would say, because there's nothing worse when you're sat in meetings with someone and they don't know what kind of artist, dancer, actor that they want to be. Because we also, as agents, need stuff to go off. So if someone says, I just want to be an actor, I'm like, yeah, but what kind of acting? Oh, I do anything.
Yeah.
Like, where do I take? Do you know what I mean? You need to have. Yeah. I get that people are open to try things, but I feel like you have to have a direction that you want to head down.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we chat about this a lot in the sense of, and I don't know from your experience if you think the same, but for new grads coming out of like this sort of like training, you know, they come out, there's so much pressure on them to get a job, to go to all these auditions, to sign with an agent because they see all their peers signing with an agent, and it becomes such an external thing. It's such a, I want them to like me, I need to get this, like they're looking for some sort of validation from the outside world. Whereas if they went in being like, this is who I am, this is what I can do, could we work together, is that going to work well, am I going to like them? That's, no one stops to ask themselves that, you know, am I going to like them as well? And that's how you're going to get the best out of your agent relationship, I believe anyway.
100%, because you need your agent to know your brand. Because, like, for example, if I was to take you on, Zara, I could just write, oh, she's a dancer, but like, I don't know, I need to know what kind of dancer you are. What, do you know what I mean? Like, we need to have that relationship. If I'm just subbing you for any dance job, do you know what I mean? I need to know what directions you want to head down as a dancer.
Yeah.
So your agent also needs to understand your brand, because otherwise you're going to just be in the rooms for all kinds of crazy stuff.
Exactly. I think it's maybe important to note right now, just in case people don't know. So, and Danny, you can expand on this a little bit. When you're applying for an agency, what tends to happen is you apply, you submit yourself via email, or what would you say normally email people submit themselves for? Normally email, but I mean, you can contact them anyway, yeah? No?
Website, you go through the website sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about people like reaching out on Instagram or something?
I think it's great, because I think it shows, in a sense, it shows that people have got fire, because they're looking for Instagram, they've seen in your bio or whatever that you work for said talent agency or you are an independent agent, and they want to work with you. So I think it shows, willingness that people
Amazing. Well, that's good to
reach
know.
out, send you their spotlight.
Yeah.
That's good to know, because I think for me, I would have been like, oh, no, I can't do that.
Yeah, I definitely would have felt like I was being too pushy in that sense, but...
I don't know why.
I think years ago, it probably would have been a bit more like, that's not professional, but I think because social media now has got such a presence,
Yeah.
it's not probably seen as a bit more acceptable.
I suppose you're still going to do it in a professional manner on,
Yeah.
Hiya, mate, do you want to get me on your books? And then it's going to have a very different feel, isn't it? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I also think it depends, I also say as well, it depends on how your agent is in your relationship. Because for me, I always say to all of my guys, you can WhatsApp me and say, hey babe, hey doll, like, I'm not one, you don't have to be like, hello Danny, do you know what I mean? Just say, hey, right babe, do you know what I mean? Like, I like to keep it pretty like a friendship, and I think that breaks the barrier straight away.
Yeah.
It has to be a formal email of, hello Danny, just, do you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
say whatever you want.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Doesn't matter.
Personable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Personable.
Anyway, I was just kind of explaining the process of applying for an agency, if people don't know. So you submit in whichever way feels right to you, feels whatever. And then what will normally happen is you'll have an agency meeting where if they're interested in you, they'll invite you to meet up. This is what we were chatting about a minute ago, where you'll ask each other questions. You'll see if you feel like you could work together.
It's a bit like a job interview, isn't it?
Yeah.
That kind of...
I think a
feel.
lot of people also think once, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, but once you get invited to go to that agency meeting, people are like, I'm in there, I've got it. But it might not work, you might not be
That's very true. Yeah.
compatible for each other, so it's a bit like dating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's like going on a date. You need to make sure that you bounce off each other, and that, going back to what we said before, that you understand each other as individuals and as their craft.
Exactly, yeah.
Because sometimes you can sit with someone and think, God, you are the most talented person I've probably seen today, but there's just not a vibe. Like, I don't think I could push you, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's very much it's a two-way interview, I guess, as well, isn't it? Because you're going to want to make sure you can get out. Either way, you want to make sure you can get as much out of that relationship as you possibly can, from an agent perspective or a performing perspective.
Exactly.
It's very interesting.
So I know that you spoke about people making emails and stuff personable, and that stands out to you. But what else stands out to you when someone's applying? Like, what can make you be like, well, maybe it's something in their show reel or something, I don't know, what would that be for you?
A lot of the time it's nice when people have like a specialist skill, like they might be able to do silk, or they might be able, like, they're a gymnast, like they've got a little niche that you're like, I wouldn't put that with you looking at your headshots and stuff. So I always look for people that have special skills. So I would say to like actors and stuff, you can always learn a new skill, like whether that's as simple as stage combat, swords, right up to gymnastics and stuff. So yeah, it's nice when people have other specialist skills or puppetry skills to go with it. So I look for things like that, and I also look for people that like necessarily are quite unique in terms of, you look at their headshots, but then their show reel might completely be different to their headshots. Like, yeah, I like when people have a bit of fire to them.
Amazing.
I like that.
Good to
I
know.
like that. I feel like once you have, say, you've done the meeting, you've taken someone onto your books. Do you like there to be a certain sort of working relationship from your perspective as an agent? Because I know there's definitely going to be performers out there who are like, okay, I've got my agent, I'm just going to sit and wait.
Yeah, I always say to my guys, like, if you ever feel like you want to, you've seen an audition come up or you've seen something, feel free to flag it. Feel free to say, I've seen this, I'm really interested, I think I'm the perfect casting type for whatever the role is. Feel free to keep that communication flowing. And I also say to them, like, keep the communication flowing, because otherwise we're going to lose that. We're going to lose that bond, because I won't know what you're doing. Even down to little things, if they're like, hey, I've just got a full-time job, so then I know you're going to be a lot busier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I say keep the communication going, and I would also say to people, like, also do respect that your agent is a human.
Absolutely.
And like some people, like you said earlier, Harry, some people think that their agent just focuses on them, so they'll message them at 10 at night, and that, like, just respect that they have families, they have friends, they also have a life outside of being your agent. So I think it's knowing that you can communicate when you need to, but you're not messaging every day, all day. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's finding that balance, and that's what I try to get through to my guys. It's like, if you need me, message me, but please not every day, all day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think that's fair. It's all about balance, isn't it? Which is definitely something I think we talk about a lot in working and taking a break podcast episode. I like that.
I want you as my agent, Danny.
Drop me a message. Put me an Instagram DM.
You're going to have everyone messaging you now after this, being like, I want him as my agent.
You're going to get inundated. I was going to say, do you have anything you want to sort of say as an agent? I feel sometimes, certainly I've probably said it already, being a performer, agents may have a certain stigma or whatever. Is there anything that you like? It doesn't have to be either, but is there anything you want to say is like from the perspective of an agent, like a viewpoint, or do you know what I'm trying to say? Like an opinion?
Just something you wish the industry knew.
Or
maybe something you didn't know before being an agent, like as a performer, and then you've become an agent and you were like, oh, like what would be beneficial?
Insightful. Something like that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, like, I think you don't realise how much more goes into being an agent and how much more they do for you that you don't see. So I think people sometimes need to respect that agents are doing a lot more for you than they'll ever tell you. Because if they told you every single email they send, every single submission, like, be here all day. So I think from a performer, like, obviously if you're feeling like they're not doing enough for you, definitely flag it. But I would say have that trust in your agent that they are pushing you as hard as they can. And that's something I learned being an agent, is like, you really have to push people, and half the time you won't get a reply back, or sometimes as well, like, you'll see a casting and you'll be like, Harry's perfect for that, but the casting director might not think that you are. So it's not always a match made in heaven in that sense. So yeah, I think trust your agent, and being an agent, I've realised how much more goes into it than just sitting on Spotlight, sending a headshot off, see you later. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's one thing I would say with being an agent, is have a respect for them. And the big thing I always say, and I say to all of my guys, and I know that every agency is different and they work differently. Some agencies send a submission list at the end of every week. I always say to my guys, if you're going to ask for your submission list, please only ask every 2 to 3 months. And I always say that to them from a mental health perspective, because if you're being sent it every week and I'm like, oh Zara, I've submitted you for 1,000 things this week, your mental health is going to start declining. Whereas if you see a 3-month breakdown, it's a bit easier to digest.
That
so
makes
I just
sense.
think, don't get obsessed with asking. Do you know what I mean? If you've not heard anything for 2 weeks, do you know what I mean? Just chill out a bit and don't let yourself be like, what have you subbed me for? What have you subbed me for? Because it's damaging for you. And I think sometimes actors can think that the agent is hiding information, but they're actually a lot of the time doing it to protect you.
That's
You know,
that's the, yeah. That's
It's
very
all about
interesting.
that trust you were talking about. That's why you need to have that initial meeting, and you need to know if you work well with them, because if you don't trust them, then that's when all this is going to come up with.
Absolutely. It's like you were saying earlier as well, Danny. You want to keep that relationship, keep that the chat flowing, and keep everything up to date and current from both sides, because that's so important. And I think that is that, in a sense, that's one of the bottom lines, isn't it? We're all humans, and we all like to communicate in some way, and that if you have a good communicative relationship, you're gonna have a better result, even if it's not as busy as you might like it to be, or however you perhaps envisioned it. It might be a bit of a reality check, I don't know.
Exactly. No, it's true.
No, I like that.
Nice.
I like that. Yeah. Have we got any other questions? We always write a list of things we want to talk about, and then we definitely go not in order. If it's
Yeah,
numerical,
go
we'll
on a
go for
tangent.
1, 5, 3, 7.
I know.
I don't know. I'm looking at this. Is there anything else? Have you got anything you want to ask us? Not that you have to.
Turning the table. How did you find coming out of normal schools or coming out of any kind of thing like that? How did you find the pressure of people being like, you need to get an agent if you don't get an agent? Because I feel like it's getting better, but if you're the one that doesn't sign from your year, it is always like, oh, damn. So how did you find that pressure when you first were like hunting for an agent in that field?
Interesting. Do you want to go first? We'll have
Yeah,
different perspectives on this, because you've come from a dance perspective.
It was definitely very... So it's different in the sense of, I think... So I trained on a dance course, and I think there was obviously pressure to get an agent, and it was so... It maybe wasn't pressure, maybe that's not the word, it was competitive. It was like, this person's got this agent, what agent can I get? And then if someone wasn't getting an agent, they were like, well, I'm doing better than you because I can get a job and not pay commission. And it was a competitive environment with those however many people in your year of like who's doing better than who. That's like outwardly what was going on. And I think that made a lot of people sign, like how you were saying earlier, with agents they wouldn't necessarily sign with. Like in hindsight, I think a lot of people would walk away and be like, yeah, that maybe wasn't for me or whatever, but it's that pressure, that competitiveness, and I think having left dance college and whatever and had some time away, I would act so differently now. Like I never went into an agency audition and thought, I've got something to offer you, like this is what I can do. I was 100% like you said, I wanted them to like me, which is, it's not the way to be at all.
I wonder, it meant just when you said it earlier, I thought, I wonder if that's something you kind of made to think, or sort of constructed to subliminally think whilst training. Do you know what I mean? Because you kind of, I'd go as far as to talk about traditional school system as well. I was looking for gratification and to get it right, but that's maybe a different conversation. I don't know.
Yeah, probably another podcast.
Did you have anything else for that? Or?
Well, you've thrown me off now.
Sorry.
No, I'm joking. No, it was competitive, and I think that competitiveness brought the pressure. But what I was actually going to say was that I think for the musical theatre course and even the actors, it was a whole other level because, again, tell me if I'm wrong, Danny, but it's somewhat easier. Like they do so many open call cruise auditions and so many like dance auditions where you could submit yourself. Which again, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm not an actor or whatever, but I feel like to get in for like musicals and whatever, is the agents can see more in Spotlight, they can submit you for more, Tell me if I'm wrong, you've gone silent.
No, you're good. No, it's true.
I think I kind of agree. Maybe I've never come from a dance perspective, but I can see what you mean.
I think it's just because like we didn't have, like you guys, I know you've told me, and I know that musical theatre course and I think that acting course where I trained had a showcase where they invited loads of agents, and MT went to London to do a showcase there where the agents could come to them. Whereas we didn't have that. We had our end of year shows, and we submitted to agents like out with that, but we never invited anyone really to come watch us. It wasn't really a thing like that. So
Okay.
That's interesting. I kind of, the start of what you were saying is kind of similar. I mean, obviously, like you said, we had a showcase. We had one in Birmingham and one in London, and we as a year group were told, like, right, you got this certain amount of time, go look up a load of agents and invite them. And I remember making loads of letters, sending loads of emails, and all as a little cohort, which was quite cool. And then we did our showcase in Birmingham, and then we did one in London, and that was all quite fun, exciting, and nerve-wracking. I quite enjoyed it personally, but then afterwards, when people start getting responses about representation and all that kind of stuff, the whole sort of atmosphere kind of went into like a like everyone whispers, and like, oh, they've got this, and like people you thought were quite good friends are all of a sudden not so good friends over something that I was like, well, I felt quite sad, because I was like, we've been together for 3 years, we've sort of gone through all our ups and downs, and people being, in good relationships, bad relationships, all the rest of it, but none of us are the same. None of us can offer the same thing as, do you know what I mean? And I don't know, and the other thing I found was that within that, people would start talking about certain agencies in a certain way, which I think is really detrimental. Almost like saying, oh, well, you've got an offer for them, but I've got an offer from this person, so they're much better than it. Which I think, obviously,
it's not only pressure to get an agent, it's pressure to get a certain agent, and like, it's a load of rubbish.
I think it all comes, for me, it comes back to what we've kind of talked about a lot in this, is that it's about finding the right relationship to you. I don't think it matters who the agent is, what the name of the agency is. It's about your journey with your prospective agent as a duo, or that working relationship, because that's the thing that's your common goal, like we've already said, is to get work, so you can both get some money and develop that career for both of you. So that should be the goal in my mind, but it's definitely not something you think about, if you know what I mean. You get caught up in the whole. Again,
it's that outward perception. It's nothing. You don't look inward. You're not like, who am I? What am I doing? Which is everything we try and teach at Quartz Academy. It's always who, like, it's always outward. It's always like, do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, I want this.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there as well. Like, there isn't one agency that's like the top agency. Or like you'll speak to 10 actors and they all have a different opinion on an agency. So it's all depends who fits for you. So your best friend could have had the best time at a certain agency, but another best friend could have hated it. It was hell. So I think sometimes when you're looking at agents, you have to shut off everyone else's opinion and viewpoint and go with where you feel you're going to be best fitted.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's one thing that needs to stop being squashed a bit. Like, obviously it's great to be represented, and it does it's good to have it in your bio that you're repped, but we need to try and squash this thing where, like, if you're the one or two that doesn't get repped from your year, that you're automatically a worse actor or a worse dancer. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not true. It's like, it doesn't mean that your capability is any less than anybody else because you're not repped.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
I know so many people from my, like, sort of circles who have graduated, not got an agent, not got a job in the first little while, and are the ones who are doing so well now and have had the longevity, whereas the people that have maybe, and this doesn't go for everyone, I'm not saying that, but like people who leave training with an agent and get right into a job and whatever are off doing, like, I don't know, it's another job now, which is okay, but it's like, it doesn't mean one thing. There's not one path for anyone. It's not like your worth.
Different for everyone.
Your worth does not depend on if you've got an agent or if you've got a job, or you're still a dancer, you're still an actor, you're still a performer, you're still working in the field, whether you're working on an actual job or working with an agent or not. It doesn't matter.
I think as well that, Danny, for example, if you were looking to, you'd come to my showcase, but you already had someone in your books who is, the same as me, you're not going to take me on necessarily, because it's like, well, I've already got someone of that sort of caliber, so it doesn't make sense to have two people that you're potentially going to pie off against each other in auditions.
I feel that on another level, because I am I've got brown hair, brown eyes. I'm like the most generic looking person, like wanting to do like cabarets and stuff, which everyone else who looks like me wanted to do. Like, so I understand that.
You should have shaved your head or something.
I know.
You're right though, it is so competitive, and especially now because the castings are now so open, like, which they should be, but like for most roles there's not a set look now or a set style they want, so yeah, it's a lot more competitive. And that's one thing I would say, if we're being represented, some people think that the minute they're represented they're going to be doing 70 self-tapes a week, going to 50 auditions. Like, you can have 3 months of nothing. Like, from experience, like, I have some people where 2 months I'm flogging them. That sounds like I'm flogging the dead horse. I don't mean that, but I mean, like, I'm subbing them like crazy, nothing. And then I'll have a week where we'll have 10 tapes. And so it's just like, there's no maths to this industry. There's no way to. So yeah, you can have a few quiet months and then you can be crazy busy. So I think that's another thing for people to understand, that it swings roundabouts a lot.
Absolutely. I've always said that it's like but waiting for a bus. Like, it takes ages. It's like, I should have had 3 buses by now, and then they'll all come in one go.
Exactly.
And yeah, I've absolutely always felt that auditions are like, and tapes are like buses. I don't know if that's similar for you, but
yeah, there's always audition seasons where you would have 6 in a week and then none for 6 months.
That's true, actually. I suppose that's something to consider, isn't it? That you'll have your panto season auditions and your what's it? Pilot season is another thing, which maybe, I don't know if that's so much of a thing in the UK. It's definitely a thing in the States, isn't it? But do you know what I mean? There'll be different seasons for different kind of things, and yeah, interesting.
It's been very insightful talking to you, Danny.
So
grateful to have you on.
When you do these things, you think, God, what if they're like, you don't have a clue what the hell you're talking about? You know?
No, Danny, remember, look inwards, look at what you've got to give us.
Yes, practice what you preach.
We knew you had have so much to offer this, which is why we asked you.
We wouldn't reach out if we didn't know. Bless you.
And I think it's nice because some people don't they don't really have an understanding. It's not really spoken about, is it, the in-depth?
Absolutely.
And I always say, the way I explain it to people that like are not in this industry, like my parents, for example, is it's probably one of the only industries where you train, but you're never guaranteed a job at the end. Like, if you were to train to be a doctor or a lawyer, okay, you might not get a job, but there's a likelihood that you're going to have a job at the end. If you're trained to be a teacher, whereas it's the only industry where you train and you could never work in that industry ever.
Yeah.
It's a very good point.
You know, so it's very hard in that sense. People don't understand that side of it.
And I think that's a hard hit as well, which I think we might have mentioned in another podcast. When you come out of training and you've had that bubble of intense classes of whatever, and then it's like, whoa, the real world's just smack bang in the face, and it's like you say, it could end up like that, or you could have a long period of time where you're waiting for something. So yeah, it's important to consider that, and then that comes back into mental health and understanding.
Maybe we'll have to get you on again, Danny.
Yourself, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do we have any more questions or anything we want to discuss?
I feel like I do, but I feel like it's going to have to be Danny part 2, you know?
Would you be up for a part 2?
Yeah, let's do it again. Let's get back
do
on.
It again.
Do you know what we'll do, right? This is a great idea. We should, whenever you're free, like in the future, we'll put out a thing on our social media and we'll get questions from everyone out there who's got questions to ask. And then we'll get you back on and we'll get your questions answered. So if we've not covered something today, if we've got off on a tangent, which we love to do,
we do.
And you're like, I wanted you to speak about this, send it to us over on our socials, send it to Danny even. We'll attach Danny's like details and handles and all the jazz to our podcast so you can check it in the show credits below. But yeah, we'll do a Danny part 2 at some point with all your questions answered.
That sounds good.
Yeah, 100%. There's probably so much we haven't covered because so many people have so many questions, don't they?
Always. Questions are good. We learn more.
Lovely. Well, I hope that you take away from today, everyone listening, that when you're applying for an agent, if you even want an agent, if that's the route you want to go down, just be yourself. Go out and find someone who's right for you, whether that's a big name, a small name, whatever it is, you know, if you feel like you're going to be able to work well with them, then that's the right agent for you.
Absolutely, yeah. Cool. Well, this has been lovely. Thank you so much for coming on, Danny.
No, thank you. Keep smashing it, you two. You are smashing it. And yeah, it couldn't happen to two lovelier people. So.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Likewise. Right back at you.
Yeah, we love you, Danny.
I appreciate that. Cool. So, thank you so much for listening.
Yes. See you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Wee
Yeah.
wee.
Bye.
Bye. You have been listening to Tina Chat with Quartz Academy.
If you have any questions or things you want to know, visit our website at www.quartzacademy.co.uk or email us info@quartzacademy.co.uk.
You can also find us on our socials, Instagram, Facebook and TikTok.
Thanks for listening.
We're so happy you're here. See you next week.
Bye.